There are moments in life that split your timeline in two, before and after. I used to think they came like lightning, sudden, electrifying, impossible to ignore. But mine didn't. It came quietly, like steam rising from a hot shower, swirling into the air, unnoticed until it fogged the mirror. It was a Sunday morning. Warm light spilled across the floor through half-closed blinds, and the only sounds were the distant hum of traffic and the soft splash of water from the bathroom. My wife, Mia, was in the shower. I had just set down my coffee on the dresser when her phone, face up beside her makeup bag, lit up on the countertop. I didn't mean to look. Not really. But the screen glowed with a quiet kind of urgency. It showed only a name I didn't recognize, Brent, and 5 words that punched a hole in my chest before I even had time to breathe. Last night was perfect. Red heart. I didn't move. The message lingered for 3 seconds, then disappeared as the screen dimmed. The bathroom fan hummed on, and the water continued to fall behind the frosted glass door. She didn't see me freeze. Didn't see the blood drain from my face or the slow, mechanical way I sat on the edge of the bed like my legs had forgotten how to support me. Last night was perfect. I wanted to believe there was some innocent explanation. Maybe Brent was a coworker. Maybe he was gay. Maybe anything. But the emoji was there. That smug, red heart. Not a thumbs up or a smiley. No professional boundaries to hide behind. My eyes drifted to the mirror on the wall. The steam from the shower had begun to fog the edges, but the center remained clear, reflecting back the tight lines in my face, the tension in my jaw, the widening of my eyes. I didn't recognize the man staring back at me. He looked broken. I stood and crossed to her phone, hands trembling as I reached for it. But just before my fingers touched the screen, I stopped. I couldn't unlock it without the passcode. We didn't use each other's phones. Never had a reason to. Trust had always been implicit, at least I thought it had. I stepped back, breathing hard. I didn't feel angry yet. Not even betrayed. What I felt was a strange, hollow numbness. Like the air had been sucked out of the room and replaced with static. I went to the bathroom door. The glass was opaque, but I could see her silhouette behind it, graceful, relaxed, humming faintly. Her voice floated under the sound of water. She was always like that in the shower, as if the world couldn't touch her there. I wanted to throw open the door and demand answers. Wanted to scream and cry and accuse. But I didn't. Instead, I walked back to the bed and sat in silence, staring at the mirror as the steam crept in from the bathroom and blurred my reflection into nothing. When she stepped out 10 minutes later, wrapped in a towel, her wet hair clinging to her shoulders, she smiled at me like nothing had changed. "You okay?" she asked, toweling her hair dry. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." She walked to the dresser, picked up her phone, and glanced at the screen. Her smile faltered just for a second, so quick I might have imagined it. Then she swiped it open and turned away, fingers dancing across the screen. No sign of worry. No guilt. Just normal. But I wasn't normal. Not anymore. That night, while she slept beside me, curled on her side with her hand resting on my chest, I stared at the ceiling. My mind looped the message like a broken recording. Last night was perfect. Last night. That was the part that stung. She told me she was out with her friends from college, a reunion dinner. Said they'd gone for drinks after. Nothing wild. She came home at midnight, kissed me softly, and climbed into bed like nothing was out of place. But something was out of place. That text proved it. I started remembering things I'd ignored, little inconsistencies. The nights she stayed late at work without explanation. The moments she'd laughed at messages she wouldn't share. Her sudden desire to get space during our evenings. Her smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Had she been hiding in plain sight? I didn't sleep that night. When the sun rose, I got up quietly, went downstairs, and made coffee. I stood in the kitchen, mug in hand, watching the sun break across the backyard fence. My mind was already in motion. I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I needed more. I needed certainty. That morning, I bought a burner phone. It felt dirty, deceptive, but so was she. I installed tracking software, something discreet that would let me mirror her texts, her calls, her location. It took me hours to figure it out, to install it without leaving a trace. I'd done tech work in college, enough to fake my way through. That night, while she was in the shower again, our ritual, hers longer than mine, I slipped into her purse and installed the app. My hands shook the whole time. My heartbeat echoed in my ears like a drumbeat of guilt. When she came out, She didn't suspect a thing. She slipped into bed, kissed me goodnight, and turned away, phone in hand. Who are you texting now, Mia? By the next morning, I had access. Her phone mirrored on mine. It was quiet at first. A few messages to her sister, some work chats. I scanned everything like a detective, dissecting each sentence for hidden meaning. For 2 days, nothing suspicious appeared. I began to doubt myself. Maybe the message wasn't what I thought. Maybe Brent was harmless. But then, on the third night, at 9:42 p.m., a message came in. Brent, can't stop thinking about your mouth. I stared at the screen for a full minute. My pulse throbbed in my throat. My hands went cold. A moment later, her response came. Mia, stop. You're going to make me sneak out again. Again. That word was a knife. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions: work, home, dinner, pretend smiles, meaningless conversations, but my mind wasn't there. I was gathering data, collecting every message, every timestamp, every signal that proved the truth I no longer wanted to deny. Mia was cheating on me, and she was careful. Their texts were sparse, never overly romantic, but they dripped with subtext. Missed you today. That thing you did with your tongue. Meet same place. They spoke in codes, but the meaning was always clear. What gutted me most was how easily she switched between worlds. She'd laugh with our kids over breakfast, kiss me goodbye, and then slip away to message him like it was just another errand. One night, a message hit differently. Brent, Friday. My place. I'll cook. Mia, might be risky. He's been acting strange lately. Brent, he'll never know. My hand clenched around my phone until my knuckles turned white. She thought I'd never know. That I was blind. Passive. A fool. She didn't know who I was. She didn't know I was already watching. That Friday, I didn't go to work. I told her I had an off-site meeting, a full day. She kissed me goodbye, coffee in one hand, car keys in the other. The same woman I'd married. The same woman now lying through her teeth. I waited 10 minutes, then followed. Not in my car. That would be obvious. I'd arranged for a rideshare to drop me a few blocks away from where Brent lived. Yes, I'd found his address. It wasn't hard. A few clues in their messages, a few searches later, and there it was. A townhouse. Neat. Quiet street. Brick facade. Her car was already parked outside. I didn't go to the door. I didn't ring the bell. I just waited. By the time dusk fell, she emerged, hair tousled, face glowing, adjusting her dress like she'd just stepped out of a dream. She got into her car and drove away. And I stood on the sidewalk, the air growing colder around me, my hands in my pockets, the phone still buzzing in my coat with her latest message. Mia, dinner was perfect. I'll be dreaming about it. The same words he'd used the first time. Last night was perfect. But she had no idea. She had no idea what I was planning next. It's strange, really, the way grief twists you. It doesn't always start with tears or screaming. Sometimes it begins with precision. Cold, clean, surgical. I'd always been a logical man. I worked in structural design. Every decision weighed in calculations, risk assessments, tolerances. But nothing in my training prepared me for the weight of watching my wife walk out of another man's house with that sleepy, satisfied smile. I didn't confront her that night. When she got home, I was already in bed, eyes closed, breathing slow. She slipped under the covers, smelling faintly of soap that wasn't ours. She kissed my shoulder, whispered, "You asleep?" I lied. "Yeah, long day." She curled into me, humming contentedly. I stayed perfectly still, willing myself not to flinch. My hand was inches from hers, but it might as well have been oceans away. The next morning, I started my real work. Her phone was a goldmine. Their thread was light on emotional confessions, just snapshots of their affair. But the mirrored app picked up more than messages. Location logs, deleted drafts, even auto-saved photos. There was one I couldn't unsee. A blurry mirror selfie, clearly from Brent's bedroom. She was wearing a shirt I'd never seen before, unbuttoned just enough. Her hair messy. Her lips curled in a smirk I hadn't seen directed at me in years. The caption, "You forgot this angle last time face-blowing a kiss." I stared at it for hours. Then I created a folder on my computer and labeled it plainly, Evidence. That evening, I followed her again. Same routine. She told me she was meeting Ratch and Katie for drinks. Hugged me at the door, laughing like we were still us. Said something about the kids needing dentist appointments, that we'd talk more about it later. "Love you," she said. "I know," I replied. She blinked. I smiled. She didn't notice. I tracked her phone all the way to Brent's. This time, I didn't wait outside. I walked up the street, past their cars, past the windows lit with soft yellow light, and I stood across the road, partially hidden by an old oak tree. I waited for movement, waited for a glimpse. My breath puffed visibly in the cold air. Then I saw it. Their shadows passed behind the blinds. A figure, hers, reaching up to his neck. The movement unmistakable. The tilt of a head. The way two people dissolve into one shape. I didn't flinch. I just stared. I watched until the light in the front room clicked off. Then I turned and walked away. I spent the next week gathering everything. Photos, videos from traffic cams near his house, screenshots of every suggestive text. My hands became steady again, clinical. I cataloged, time-stamped, and sorted. I even hacked into Brent's Instagram. Fake profile, minimal followers. But a few photos showed up that helped me confirm what I'd already suspected. They'd been seeing each other for at least 5 months. Longer than Mia would ever admit, even when cornered. She'd commented under one picture from last December. Just a single snowflake emoji. Harmless, unless you knew what it meant. Because I remembered that snowstorm. I remembered she'd told me she'd gotten stuck at her office that night and couldn't drive home. Now I knew where she really was. The final piece of my plan was taking shape. I didn't want a confrontation, not yet. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling. The slow unraveling. The dread of being watched. The haunting presence of knowledge just beyond the veil. I wanted her to see her reflection and realize it wasn't her own anymore. So I started leaving signs. Small things. Subtle. First, I left her phone out of place. Just slightly. Not enough to raise alarm. Just enough to make her pause. She always kept it on her nightstand, screen down. One night, I left it on the dresser, screen up. The next morning, she frowned at it. Then looked at me. Did you move my phone? Nope, I said, sipping my coffee. She blinked. Weird. I just smiled. Maybe Brent did. Her head snapped up so fast it nearly gave her whiplash. What? I laughed. Just kidding. You said Rachel texted last night. I figured she might have borrowed it. She didn't smile. She just nodded slowly, lips pressed tight. Seed planted. The next night, I rearranged the laundry. Nothing major. Just moved a few pieces around in her drawer. She was meticulous. Shirts folded a specific way, colors grouped. I shuffled a few stacks. Just enough to look like someone had been looking for something. She stared into the drawer for a long time before asking, Did you fold the laundry? Nope. Huh, she said. Maybe I did it tired. Long week, I offered. Hard to keep track. She didn't respond. By Friday, I left something larger. A note. Just a small slip of paper taped inside the bathroom mirror. Right in the center, where the steam would hit. One sentence. I see you. I made sure I was already out the door by the time she found it. When I got home, she was pale. Jumpier than usual. Her phone was in her hand constantly, but no new messages came in. She didn't mention the note. Neither did I. She cooked dinner in silence. The kids chatted around us. I watched her hands tremble as she poured the wine. Everything okay? I asked. She looked up. Yeah. Why? You seem off. I'm fine, she said quickly. I let the silence stretch. You sure it's not guilt? She froze. Just for a second. A breath caught. A blink delayed. Then she forced a smile. Don't be weird. Just saying. I replied, cutting my steak. Some things tend to show up. In reflections. She stared at me for a long beat. Then she got up and left the table. That night, I checked the mirrored app. Brent had texted her twice. Brent. Hey, did something happen? You okay? Brent. You've gone quiet. She hadn't replied. Instead, she went to bed early, curled away from me, her breathing uneven. I lay there beside her, eyes open, watching the ceiling like it held secrets. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't hurt anymore. I was hunting. On Saturday, I went to Brent's place. Not to confront. Just to see. He lived alone. A second-floor apartment above a laundromat. No security cameras. No neighbors visible. I waited until he left, then used a lockpick kit I'd bought online weeks earlier. Took me 12 minutes to get in. My heart pounded the whole time, but my hands? Steady. Inside, I didn't touch much. Just observed. Clean, modern space. Gray couch. Minimal decor. A half-used cologne bottle on the counter. The same scent I smelled on Mia's scarf once, weeks ago, and assumed was mine. In his nightstand drawer, I found what I was looking for. A photo. Him and Mia. Taken at the coast. She was wearing my hoodie. My hoodie. They were smiling. Beaming. It wasn't just an affair. It was a life being built beneath mine. I left the photo exactly where I found it. Didn't take anything. Just slipped out, locking the door behind me. As I walked down the street, something clicked into place inside me. A realization that settled cold and deep. She had made her move. Now it was my turn. That night, I started crafting my response. I printed copies of the texts. Dozens of them. Created a sleek, anonymous-looking envelope and slipped them inside. No name. No return address. Then I wrote a single sentence on the front. You deserve to know who she really is. The next day, I slid it under Brent's door. And then I waited. There's a particular silence that comes after you pull the pin, but before the explosion. It's not peaceful, it's electric. Tight. Like the whole world's holding its breath. That's what Sunday felt like. Mia moved through the house like a ghost. She barely touched her phone. Kept flinching when the kids shouted too loud or dropped their cereal bowls. When I asked if she was okay, she just muttered something about work stress and went upstairs. By noon, Brent had read the envelope. I knew because the mirrored app showed zero communication between them since. No frantic, "Who sent this?" No damage control. Just silence. And that silence was louder than anything they could have said. He hadn't texted her back. Hadn't called. He'd seen it. And whatever feelings he thought he had for her, I'd shattered them. That should have made me feel satisfied. Triumphant, even. But it didn't. Not yet. That evening, I poured myself a drink and sat in the kitchen, watching the light fade through the blinds. The house felt wrong. The air too thick. I could hear the kids playing in the next room, and her footsteps overhead. For a moment, I wanted to rewind everything. Back to the before. But before was gone. Gone the moment I saw those 5 cursed words on her phone. Last night was perfect. That night, she came into our room later than usual. Her eyes were red. Not from tears. She hadn't earned those yet. But from exhaustion, anxiety, or guilt. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I didn't look up from my book. "About." She hesitated. "I feel like something's off between us." Now that was rich. I finally met her eyes. "Something's off." She nodded, lips tight. "Yeah, you've been distant." A beat passed. Then I closed the book. "Do you ever look in the mirror, Mia?" She tilted her head, confused. "What?" "The mirror," I repeated. "When you're in the bathroom, do you ever stop and look at yourself? Not to do your makeup. Just to see." Her voice was almost a whisper. "Why are you asking me that?" I smiled faintly. "Because I wonder if you'd recognize the person staring back." Her face paled. I watched a muscle twitch in her jaw. She knew. She didn't know how I knew, but she knew I did. Still, she said nothing. And neither did I. Not yet. The next morning, I checked the mirrored app. Still no text from Brent. Nothing but silence. Until 10:16 a.m. "Brent, don't contact me again. We're done." 3 minutes later, she called him. He didn't answer. 5 minutes after that, she called again. Still nothing. At 10:28, she sent a message. "Mia, please don't do this. I need to talk to you." No reply. By noon, she'd deleted his contact. Or tried to. The mirrored app still kept the thread alive. She just didn't know it. By the time I got home from work, she was unraveling. "Hey," she said, trying to smile as I walked through the door. "How was your day?" "Quiet," I said. "Yours?" She hesitated. "Uneventful." "Good," I said, setting my bag down. I like uneventful. That night, she drank wine alone in the kitchen. I watched from the hallway, unseen. She sat with her chin in her hand, staring at her phone like it had betrayed her. Like it held answers it refused to give. I wanted to feel sorry for her. I did. For a second. But the sympathy passed. Because she hadn't just lied. She'd built an entire world outside ours. A whole reality with someone else. And she'd done it so well that for months, I never saw the cracks. Now, I was turning them into canyons. By Wednesday, she was unraveling fast. I came home to find her crying in the laundry room. She snapped upright when she heard the door. "I'm fine," she said, wiping her face. "Just spilled detergent." I didn't even respond. Just walked past her, letting the silence fill the space between us like smoke. She didn't follow. That night, I dropped the next clue. She was asleep when I slipped into her office and opened her laptop. Her password hadn't changed in years. Our wedding anniversary. Fitting. I created a new document. Plain white. Centered text. How many lies can fit between two people in a bed? I left it open. Then I logged out and went to bed. In the morning, she found it. She didn't say anything, but her silence was screaming. She started checking her phone obsessively again. Not for Brent. He was gone, but for signs of something else. Paranoia. She started jumping at every noise. Once, I caught her watching me from the top of the stairs as I loaded the dishwasher. I looked up, met her eyes. She vanished back into the hallway like a ghost. Friday morning, it all came to a head. I was in the garage, working on an old project I hadn't touched in months. Mia came out, barefoot, eyes hollow. "We need to talk," she said. I kept sanding the wood. "About?" She didn't laugh. Didn't blink. "You know?" I stopped. Looked up. "Do I?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Please, just tell me what you know." I leaned against the workbench, crossing my arms. "Who's Brent, Mia?" She broke. Just like that. Started crying, hands covering her face, sinking to her knees on the concrete floor. "I'm sorry," she said over and over. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just... God, I don't even know anymore." I let her sob for a while. Then I asked how long. She didn't look up. 8 months. My jaw clenched. 8. That was longer than I expected. "Why him?" She didn't answer. I didn't press. Some questions don't need answers. They just echo. We didn't talk the rest of the day. She stayed in the bedroom. I stayed downstairs. I made dinner for the kids. Cleaned up. Said goodnight. When I finally came upstairs, she was sitting in the dark, hugging her knees on the bed. "I don't know why I did it," she whispered. "I love you. I swear I do." I turned on the light. Then I held up the second phone. The one I found hidden in the vent. The one I'd cloned and mirrored. The one with all her messages. "This," I said, "says otherwise." She stared at it like it was a weapon. And maybe it was. "I was going to tell you," she said. "No," I replied. "You were going to hide it. Like everything else." Silence stretched between us. A fault line ready to split. "Are you leaving me?" she asked. I didn't answer. Not yet. That night, I slept in the guest room. The sheets smelled like dust and old memories. I stared at the ceiling for hours. It would have been easier if she'd been cruel. If she'd screamed. If she'd denied it. But she broke. And somehow, that made it worse. Because now I had to decide. Not just what to do, but who I wanted to be on the other side of this. Saturday morning, I got the call I'd been waiting for. The DNA results had arrived. I opened the email. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of truth. And what I read, it changed everything. There are lies you can forgive. And then there are lies that rewrite the truth of your entire life. When I opened the DNA results, I wasn't looking for hope. I was looking for clarity. Just a definitive answer, so I could know where I stood before I took my next step off the edge. The lab report came in a simple PDF. Cold, clinical, no dramatics. But as I read the summary, I felt the world tilt. James, probability of paternity, 99. 99%. Ella, probability of paternity, 0. 0%. I blinked. Read it again. Same words. Our daughter, my Ella, wasn't mine. And just like that, the ground disappeared beneath me. I don't remember much of what happened immediately after. Just the silence of the room, the hum of my desktop fan, the sound of my breathing, rapid, uneven. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But I sat there, hands clenched in my lap, my teeth grinding together, until my jaw ached. Ella, my little girl, my second-born, my curious, giggling, princess-obsessed whirlwind of joy. The one who called me daddy before she ever said mommy. Not mine. Not biologically. Not in blood. But everything else. Every bedtime story. Every dance recital. Every scraped knee. I was her father. And now? Now I was sitting on a detonator. I could have confronted Mia immediately. Could have marched into the bedroom, shoved the results into her hands, demanded names, answers, confessions. But I didn't. Instead, I waited. I watched her. She floated through the house like someone in mourning. Quiet. Withdrawn. Trying to be better, but too afraid to ask what she was being punished for. She cleaned more. Cooked more. Left me long, awkward silences filled with things she couldn't say. She'd confessed the affair with Brent. But Ella was 5 years old. This wasn't just one mistake. It was a pattern. A history. I needed to know the whole truth. And to get it, I needed her to feel cornered. Trapped. Exposed. So I made a plan. And I started with the mirror. It was a Sunday when it happened. Late afternoon. I knew she'd be leaving to run errands, her usual routine. I waited until her car pulled away, then moved through the house quickly, carefully. In our bathroom mirror, the one she always used, I left a message. This time, not a sticky note or a file. This time, I etched the glass. Not deep, just enough that when the steam rolled in, the message would appear. I used her ring, the one she hadn't worn in weeks. By the time she came home and took her usual shower, I was sitting downstairs with the kids, pretending to help James with his math worksheet. She was up there for longer than usual. Then I heard the slam of a door. Fast, hard footsteps. She came down the stairs, pale and shaking. "Did you write on the mirror?" she asked, voice thin. I looked up slowly. Why would I do that? Her breath hitched. The message had been simple. Truth always finds a way through. I left it and signed. Let her fill in the blanks. She backed away from me like I was something unfamiliar. And maybe I was. The man she knew, passive, trusting, comfortable, was gone. Now there was just me. The version with edges. The version she'd created. That night, she didn't sleep. I could hear her pacing. At one point, she came into the guest room where I'd moved permanently. "Please," she whispered. "Tell me what you know." I stayed in bed. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Eventually, she left. The next morning, I took the final step. I sat her down in the kitchen. The kids were with my sister for the day. No distractions. Just the two of us. I slid the printed report across the table. "I got curious," I said. "Wanted answers." She didn't even open the folder. She didn't need to. Her face crumbled. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice like broken glass. "It was before Brent. It was a long time ago. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know until." She started to grow. And I realized she didn't look like you. My throat tightened. "Who?" She hesitated. "A coworker. Long gone. It was stupid. A mistake. I never even told him." "So he has a daughter he doesn't know exists." She nodded, silent. "And I've been raising someone else's child." "No." She burst out, tears now running freely. "No, she's ours. You're her dad, in every way that matters. Please, don't do this to her." I stared at her, really looked at her. And for the first time, I saw her for what she truly was. Not a monster. Just a liar. A weak, human liar who made one wrong decision after another until the house she'd built with me became a shrine to secrets. I stood up. "I'm moving out," I said quietly. She gasped. "Please, don't. Not like this. Let's talk. Let's go to therapy. Let me try." "You had your chance." She reached for me. I stepped back. "I'll file the paperwork this week. I'll be civil. We'll share custody. I won't say a word to the kids, not yet. But you and I, we're done." She sank into the chair like all the bones had left her body. And I walked out. I moved into a short-term rental that same week. Spare, impersonal, but peaceful. The kids came over on alternating weekends. Mia and I kept things as gentle as we could for them. I didn't tell James or Ella anything. Because no matter what her DNA said, Ella was still my daughter. Maybe not by blood, but in every real way, she was mine. That was the cruelest part. Even in her betrayal, Mia had given me something I never wanted to give up. A few weeks passed. Then, something unexpected happened. Brent reached out. Not to Mia. To me. He'd gotten my number, likely from the return address I used when I sent him the envelope, even though I'd disguised it. His message was short. "I don't know what she told you, but I didn't know about the other stuff." I ended it the moment I did. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." I didn't respond. What would I even say? But part of me appreciated it. At least someone had the decency to apologize. The divorce moved forward smoothly. Clean. No ugly battles. Mia tried to reach out a few times. Emails, calls, even a letter. I didn't read most of it. I was done giving her my attention. But then, one night, about a month after I moved out, I found something. A drawing. Ella had left it in her overnight bag. It was of our house, the old one, with stick figures in front. Mom, James, Ella, and me. She'd written, in shaky 5-year-old letters. "Our family. Daddy's house. I love you, Dad." My chest cracked open. I sat there on the couch, holding that scrap of paper like it was glass. Because even now, even after everything, I was still her father. And she still saw me that way. That night, I made a decision. This story wasn't going to end in bitterness. There wouldn't be fireworks. Or revenge. No dramatic courtroom scene. No final, cruel twist. Just the truth. Laid bare. And from that truth, something quieter, something better, something honest. But just as I started to breathe again, just as I started to imagine what healing might feel like, something else happened. A letter. From someone I hadn't heard from in 10 years. Someone who knew things about Mia that even I didn't. And in that envelope was a photo of Mia with a man I'd never seen before, dated 9 years ago. The back of the photo was labeled, "The First Night." And in the mirror behind them, barely visible, was me, standing in the doorway. I held the photo like it might vanish if I blinked. The grainy image, yellowed at the edges, showed Mia, 9 years younger, laughing with someone I didn't recognize. He was taller than me, with thick black hair and sharp features. His hand rested on her hip like it belonged there. But it wasn't the embrace that knocked the breath out of me. It was the mirror in the background. The mirror that showed a doorway. And in that doorway, blurred but unmistakable, was me, standing there, half-turned, unaware. The date scribbled on the back placed it during our 2nd year of marriage. The year before James was born. The year I thought we'd been building our foundation. It was all there, proof, not just of a moment, but of years of betrayal. Because Brent wasn't the beginning. Ella's father wasn't the beginning. This man, this stranger, he was. And apparently, I'd been watching from the shadows, too naive, or too trusting, to see it. The letter came with the photo. No signature, just neat handwriting and heavy words. You deserve to know the full picture. She's been lying longer than you think. This was the first night. The mirror never forgets. No return address. No name. Just vengeance, printed in ink. It should have destroyed me. But oddly, it didn't. Not this time. Maybe because the wound had already scabbed over. Maybe because I'd bled all I could. Or maybe because this was the final piece. The missing shard that made the broken mirror whole. The full truth. Ugly. Complete. And finally, clear. I stared at that photo for hours. My first instinct was to burn it. Erase the last trace of her lies. But something in me wanted to keep it. Not as a trophy or a scar, but as a reminder of who I was then, of who I became. Because now I knew, Mia had never just made a mistake. She'd made a lifestyle of omission. A habit of hiding things behind fogged glass, hoping no one would notice the cracks. But the mirror had always been there, and it had always been watching. I didn't tell her about the photo. There was no point. What could she say that hadn't already been said? I simply scanned it, filed it away, and moved forward. One foot in front of the other. Not for her. Not for revenge. But for myself. The divorce finalized in April. Quiet. Almost too quiet. The papers arrived in a thin manila envelope, notarized and cold. Just like that, we were legally strangers again. We agreed on custody, split evenly, alternating weeks. I kept my promises. I didn't poison the kids against her. I didn't air our secrets in court. The truth was mine to carry. She didn't deserve my silence. But the kids did. They deserved peace, even if it was built on the ash of what we once had. I changed my number, deleted our old photos, packed away the wedding album, and dropped it in a box marked past. But I kept Ella's drawing, taped it to the fridge in my new apartment. Every morning, when I made coffee, I saw it. And every morning, it reminded me, fatherhood isn't biology. It's consistency, presence, love. I saw Mia from a distance once, 2 months after the final papers. She was in the grocery store, looking thinner, paler, hair tied up in a messy knot. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did, and just didn't react. She was alone. No Brent. No mystery man from the photo. Just a tired woman with tired eyes, reaching for a box of cereal. There was no satisfaction in seeing her like that. Just finality. That was the day I stopped watching. Stopped checking the mirrored app. Stopped reading her texts. I deleted the software. Set the recorders aside. Let the silence return. But closure, I've learned, isn't loud. It's not a climax. Not a scream or a scene. It's a quiet morning when you realize your coffee tastes the same, even though you're drinking it alone. It's the moment your heart doesn't leap when your phone vibrates. It's the sound of your daughter's laughter that isn't haunted anymore. It's knowing you walked through hell and didn't lose yourself in the fire. By summer, I was okay. Not perfect, but okay. James started first grade. Ella learned how to swim. She still called me Daddy, still ran into my arms, still asked for one more story at bedtime. And I gave it to her. Every single one. Eventually, I met someone. A colleague from another department. Kind eyes. Quiet smile. A single mother with no patience for games. We started slow. Lunches. Then dinner. She asked me once, softly, "Why did your marriage end?" I hesitated, then answered with truth, stripped of bitterness. She stopped seeing me. She looked confused. "Seeing you? Really seeing me? The way mirrors do. The way someone who loves you is supposed to." She nodded slowly. "Well, I see you." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. Months later, on a Saturday morning, James came running to me with something in his hand. "Dad, look what I found." It was Mia's old phone, the one I'd mirrored. He must have found it tucked away in one of the leftover boxes from the house. "Can I keep it?" he asked. "I want to use the calculator thing." I took it gently from his hand, looked at the black screen, the one that once lit up with betrayal. I smiled. "Sure, bud, but give me a second." I stepped into the other room, opened the phone one last time. Not to snoop, not to check, just to look, just to see the last message she ever wrote. It was unsent, still sitting in the drafts folder. It read, "I don't know how to love you the way you deserve. I'm sorry, but I'll always remember the man who stared into the mirror and saw what I couldn't." I closed the phone, walked back to James, and handed it over. "Here," I said, "all yours." That night, I stood in my new bathroom, brushing my teeth. And for the first time in almost a year, I looked in the mirror. No fog, no etched warnings. Just me. Eyes clear, back straight, alive, whole. I leaned forward, looked into my own reflection, and said the words I hadn't dared speak in so long. "I see you." And the mirror smiled back.